Hello. Hi, everyone. My name is Armisha Roberts. Dr. Armisha Roberts. I am a postdoc at Howard University in the Human Centered Artificial Intelligence Lab. Everyone here on this panel, they're all affiliated with the Institute, the HCAI Institute at Howard. And so this panel is going to focus on AI as a catalyst for social change. And so I'm going to allow each and every one of these beautiful panelists to introduce themselves and just give you a bit more about themselves.
I'm going first. Hi, everyone. Dr. Saurav Aryal, Senior Research Scientist under the Institute for Human-Centered AI at Howard. Um, I guess research interests are applied AI and machine learning for interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary problems. My background is Howard grad, just never left, but excited to be here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jaye Nias. I am also a senior researcher in the HCAI Institute at Howard. My research area, my research lab is called Brave Ideas, which is interaction design for the advancement of society. My research really focuses on socio-technical lens with an understanding of how technologies, including AI, can help perpetuate and maintain cultural diversity. So a lot of times we think about technology being something that can be employed or appropriated for cultures, but I really want to be intentional about creating technology that really celebrates culture, that maintains it, that keeps, because a lot of our knowledge bases are kind of embedded in cultural artifacts that can be lost when the world becomes more flat, right? When people kind of become more monolithic in how we engage, and technology is doing a lot of that. So I want to be intentional in how we start to employ technology within various communities. And I am, I want to say like a four-time graduate, but not quite. I'm a graduate of multiple HBCUs since we're at Morgan State. I just want to shout out my undergrad, which was North Carolina A&T, my graduate school, which is Bowie State. I did my master's and doctorate there. I did my postdoc at Spelman, and now I'm at Howard. I also did a stint at Morehouse College. And I'm excited to be here and talk to you about our work.
My name is Howard Prioleau. I'm a PhD student in computer science at Howard University. I'm also a Google PhD fellow. My background's in machine learning and AI, and specifically within natural language processing.
Hello, everyone. My name is Thane Douglas. I am a sophomore computer science major, Spanish minor studying at Howard University. I currently serve as the editor in chief for the Howard University Undergraduate Research Journal, as well as the vice president for Google Developers Groups at Howard.
Just want to check in with everyone. Can you hear us just fine? Okay, beautiful. So I'm going to ask a series of questions to the panelists. Some questions are going to be group questions. Some are just going to be specific to the panelists because they do have a different series of expertise that I want to just talk about for this panel. So first off, this is going to be a group question for everyone, just for sake of order. Thane, you can start off. So how do you see the role of HBCUs in advancing AI research and making the field more inclusive?
I just think it's imperative that we have diverse, not only developers, but also researchers and thought leaders just at the center on this new era of just AI first systems that we're stepping into. We've kind of been in this like phase of chatbots and large language models just taking over, but we're really stepping into that next phase of agentic and cybernetic systems. And if we do not have HBCU scholars, researchers, and students and faculty really at those tables, we just run the risk of perpetuating a lot of biases and just dangerous frameworks that we've been operating on for a minute.
I would say the biggest aspect is having more professionals who are researching on the cutting edge, who are from diverse backgrounds. And as we see it, up until now, a lot of it, well, up until recently, a lot of it hasn't had a lot of diverse backgrounds. A lot of people from similar schooling and similar upbringings are researching the same stuff. So a lot of the biases overlap and go um, unaccounted for. And so I think the big aspect of HBCUs is providing a lot more diversity within the research field and adding another viewpoint that is usually forgotten.
So, being at Howard, we're at the Mecca. And I think that our lens is unique in that we have a lot of industries and outside entities that reach into this institution for resources, for people, for some of our documents and data within the scope of AI. It's happening where I feel that we could really serve more equitable AI for the future is in how we represent our communities. I think as someone who's been a part of multiple HBCUs, I'm starting to notice, maybe not as much with Howard, but maybe so, um, there was a time when our HBCUs were, for the most part, well, many of them were situated within our communities. There were homes of people that lived there. There were families that either worked on the campus or their parents or grandparents went to school there. They had ties. And as these institutions start to grow, I think the separation between the community and the institution becomes more disparate. And I believe that where we as an institution could do better looking within is making sure that we maintain good relationships and that we are a catalyst for how our communities are protected, represented, and included in the future of AI.
I mean, everybody answered everything I was planning to say, so I'll keep it short. I believe a great value of HBCUs are spaces and varieties of thought, lived experiences, and just the general environment, which is not possible at other institutions, even currently. That provides a space for the type of research and inquiry that might not always be in mainstream science, but it's part of where HBCUs shine is we bring that into the mainstream, we bring it to the forefront and make it part of inquiry, scientific, societal, in every single discipline.
Thank you. And I think it's important to keep in mind just the importance of diverse thought, considering the current climate of our administration. Diverse thought is how we move forward. And so that's going to be crucial and key in every form of technology that we integrate, being AI, machine learning, anything. So Dr. Nias, I have a question specifically for you. Your work centers on designing AI technologies that prioritize culturally inclusive and social equity. Can you share a specific project where culturally relevant AI design made a tangible impact?
Yeah, so I'm here in Baltimore. Fun fact, I consider Baltimore my second hometown. My children were both born here. I started my family here. I came here right after college and kind of became an adult in this city. I have like some of my longest standing friendships outside of like my hometown here in Baltimore. So I love this space. And when I was a professor, I had gotten some funding to do some community related work in computing. And I have a very good sister friend here, Nika Namdi. She is the founder of an organization called Fight Blight Baltimore, or Fight Blight Be More, actually, is what it's called. And I worked with her in the development of an app to track blight through the community here. The motivation from that was one Mother's Day. I think she said she was kind of sitting, waiting to go into an event. And I think she was either sitting outside on a stoop or in her car. And she noticed some children that were kind of going about their business, meandering down the street. And they got to like a certain point in the street where there was um, a lot of, I don't want to, I think there was actually construction happening, but there wasn't gated boundaries around the construction. And she just really felt the mother and her was like, yo, those babies should not be over there. That's not safe, right? And so did a deep dive into this idea of how blight or how devastation within like the physical infrastructure of our communities impacts like the physical health and well-being, the mental health and well-being and of the people that live there. And we kind of she had the idea. I didn't have the idea for the app, but we kind of worked together to design this app that could collect blighted data. And so once I got the funding, I said, well, let's look at finding community members to help test this app and start our first data collection effort. So we started, oh, I want to give you all the title. Hold on. No. Here it is. 1 second. Oh, so the project was called Data Blacktivism, Data Collection for Blighted African American Communities. And so we started a cohort of data blacktivists or activists, these young people. So they weren't just testing the app, they were actually going out and talking to members of the community about the importance of the data collection, about the work that they were doing within the app. And then Nika was able to use this data to go to city council and enact change about how construction and dilapidated properties are handled and how citizens of her communities are protected. She started a series where she does like a community walk where she actually can now take people on like a 2-mile, 1-hour walk through these communities where the sidewalks are now accessible, but talk about the different types of structures, but also the different types of blight that exist within the communities. It's additive and constructive and unpacking what's happening, but just a really cool process. I enjoyed, we had leaders and then we had young people who were like the data collectors. And I really enjoyed how both I don't want to call them students because they weren't all like college students, which is what we're kind of, I want to lean into that word student, right? Because I'm used to working with college students, but they were younger people in the community, young adults. And then we had some older adults, and watching them come to our meetings every week and discuss the conversations that they had with people in the community, learning the history, learning about the politics and the things that were going on in the community, were a part of that. And them, the young people, being able to talk about the importance of data collection, the importance of the use of technology, and kind of guiding what could potentially be the next steps felt very like, I love Afrofuturism. I consider myself an Afrofuturist, but it felt very Afrofuturistic in that we could see ourselves involved in a future of this world, whether it be physically through our families and our lives, but also in our lived experience, but also in how technology, policy, all these other things are enacted. And so it felt very powerful to me. I was really excited. And I hope that they took something from it other than a nice check, but also something on their resumes that will move them forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My next question will be for Dr. Aryal. Your work spans diverse areas from Alzheimer's research to microaggressions. So how do you ensure that models you develop are both scientifically robust and socially responsible?
I believe those two terms need to be considered somewhat more interchangeable, even in the scientific field. Something that is scientifically robust needs to be societally relevant. If the inquiry of scientific inquiry, the basis of it all is to impact humanity as a whole, it needs to impact and improve society as a whole. So my thought is they need to go hand in hand. Performance metrics need not only be accuracy, precision, and all the other standard metrics, but also potential qualitative impact metrics and how it might impact the actual people who use it down the line. So a lot of it focuses on, of course, evaluating the systems robustly, but also when doing scientific research, being very mindful about potential applications of the said technology, particularly biometrics, and how that might impact people across the spectrum. So from marginalized populations and HBCUs to immigrants and all, people of all walks of life. So, making sure your work captures all these facets. And it will take you extra time as a researcher, but you know, if you're pursuing a model that's robust, that is just simply not up for compromise.
Thank you. My next question is going to be for you, Thane. Your research on voice-enabled technologies for African American users highlights significant accessibility and bias issues. What are some of the biggest challenges you've encountered, and how can we make AI-powered voice systems more inclusive?
I would say one of the biggest limitations I've found in the research I've done under HCAI and specifically the Brave Ideas Lab is just the competency of the leading models like Llama, Claude, GPT. Um, a lot of these models actually lack a lot of cultural contextual clues to a lot of our modern language, specifically natural language in terms of slang or just any type of expression you would use with your close friends or with your family members. A lot of AI systems, they aren't trained on anything other than a standardized English data set. A lot of the foundational models that a lot of these AI applications and machine learning algorithms are built upon really relied on really old literature or just printed and previously hosted works of content and literature. But nowadays, with Gen Z, I'm a Gen Zer myself. We have our own language, we have our own vibe. We communicate with each other in so many multimodal ways. And AI is really trying to play catch up to us, trying to just stay up to date with how we communicate with one another, amongst each other. But I would definitely say the biggest the biggest area of weakness I have seen within these large language models is just a competent understanding of cultural nuance and cultural context.
I still don't understand what Gen Z says half the time, so I can only imagine the difficulties these models are having. My next question will be for you, Howard. Based on your research with natural language processing for low resource languages, what are some key technical and societal challenges in ensuring these languages are well represented in AI systems?
The biggest challenge is, well, technically speaking, is that these models are trained basically to approximate very large amounts of data. And so a lot of the times the outliers end up being the data that gets disregarded. And in the case of training a large language model, when the corpus is usually a very certain style of English when it comes to the other cultural norms and just other cultures in general that aren't very well represented within the data set, usually just be deemed as an outlier and gets disregarded. And so just technically speaking is trying to find a balance of maybe overtrain for certain aspects so that it's a little more represented and not get lost in the shuffle when trying to train it all as one whole, or just a better representation within the data, or just even algorithmically being able to model even outliers better. And then from a societal aspect, the biggest thing is access to the internet. So when training these large language models, they're just pulling data from the internet, and so very a lot of certain groups have got access to the internet and is able to generate a lot more data on the internet than specifically within my work for African language sentiment analysis. Not everybody has access to the internet there, as well as maybe not even the platforms known to us to be able to properly gather in data. So that's the big societal impact of how long you've had internet and then who has access to it.
Thank you. All right, so my next question will be for everyone, and we can start at the end and work our way up. How can AI researchers collaborate with experts in sociology, psychology, and ethics to ensure a more holistic and human centered approach to AI development?
Yes, So reiterating societal relevance and robustness go hand in hand now more than ever, as AI is getting, it feels somewhat forcibly into most of our lives at times. So collaborating with people who understand machines, such as us, and collaborating with people who understand people. So the psychologists, sociologists from all these diverse perspectives is now more important than ever. If something's going to be used by a million people, there might be a million different people, and there's a reason I'm a computer scientist. That's not my field, but I hold that collaborations that we maintain with the people in social sciences, people in fields of study that better understand the people aspect of these systems in high regard.
Okay. Good question. So, from a computer computational perspective, I think I'm going to talk about myself. Like, I look at AI and wow, it seems so human like, right? And then I sit with interdisciplinary humanists and I'm looking at the ways that they're trying to break AI. Like, what happens when we build a system to achieve a certain task and then we try to get it to cheat the system, or we um, impact the system in a way that may challenge the values of this AI as explicitly stated early on. And I think that these are problems that as a computational person, I never even thought about, right? I like, oh, you build it and then it does it, right? And so we need this diversity of thought in that these systems are going to become incredibly more pervasive. They're already extremely pervasive to the degree oftentimes we don't even see how they're enacted. They're not visible. Just a little side note, because like we've had generative AI now become kind of open source and available to the public, right? And it's becoming discourse. It has always been there. Well, not always, but it has been there for a long, long time. It's been present. And so I think we're now more aware of like how powerful it is and what is happening. But I also think that I think back to like panels and symposiums and conferences I've been at with people who are in like social work fields, and they're looking at this idea of like recommender systems and how they determine which children they're going to remove from a home, right? Or we talk about the judicial system and judges and like how they have recommender systems for like what type of penalties will be given to people that come before them based on certain metrics. And so um, initially I was like, oh, we need the subject matter experts in the room, and we do, but we also need the subject matter experts in the room to tell us where the vulnerabilities exist, to tell us and to shepherd us to the people who are impacted, because everyone here is a researcher, but we also understand that we bring our own biases, we bring our own identities into this work. Even as a marginalized intersectional being myself, I do not have the lived experiences of everyone who happens to be Black, American, woman, educated in a certain way. I have my own experiences, and someone else may experience this world very differently. So I can't speak or represent all of that. What I can do, looking at myself through this intersectional lens, right? Computer scientist, right? And then also potentially subject matter expert on X. What I can do is say, I've had this experience, but let me also reach to the people that I serve or I am a part of, or that community, and make sure that I am touching a touch point for them as well. And so, in addition to having these folks in the room or having them present when we're designing and building systems or collecting data, even, I think maintaining the networks that they have, so that we can make sure that the outliers, I love that you used that word earlier, but the outliers are not missed as often in ways that can be horribly impactful to our society and to those people.
I totally agree with everything that was said previously. A simple thing that I like about when it comes to interdisciplinary studies and more so analysis, especially within like stuff that faces humans, such as like large language models and everything, is just let experts be experts. And so formally trained in computer science and AI, so I'm not the person to decide the ethical considerations across the models or the sociological stuff. So I have the experts come in and tell you how it should be handled, and then you figure out how to make it handled. And so I think it should be as simple as that, but a lot of stuff doesn't go through like the proper checks and balances and is more so I believe it should be like this, and it ends up just being like that.
I'm sorry, Dr. Roberts, could you repeat the question again?
Okay, so the question was, how can AI researchers collaborate with experts in sociology, psychology, and ethics to ensure a more holistic and human-centered approach to AI development?
When we say human-centered approach, to me, I automatically think of just prioritizing the user of these AI applications and AI models. And I feel like for too long, like the users of modern day LLMs like ChatGPT, like Claude, like Gemini, have honestly often been taken advantage of. We really are the ones who use these models every single day. All of our queries, all of our prompts are being used to further train and just increase the proficiency and efficiency of these models. Um, and I think that's something I think universities and users of AI models have to like hold these companies accountable for. If they're really not prioritizing our user experience. And I think to the point of your question, um, having like sociologists, having psychologists, having neuroscientists, having other experts in the domains of humanities and social sciences is so important to actually advocate for the users. And that's what these like AI applications are really made for. They're made for us to use them. And I think our user experience has just been like kind of neglected and put to the side by a lot of these just leading monopolies and leading agencies who run these models. But to your point, and like what everyone said on the panel, interdisciplinary collaboration and interdisciplinary development of models, the policies that govern these models, and the frameworks for the users who use them, it's imperative if we're going to have AI be a catalyst for the betterment of just social impact and societal change.
I heard we had some time. Okay. So I was thinking about what everyone said. I love being on panels with people be talking. And I was thinking about this idea of like computational or computing people inviting other people to the table or being collaborative. And what I think I want to share is that I think my peers and I, we need to see this in reverse. Like we need to set a table for those folks and then invite ourselves to be a part of their discourse more often than kind of like, I'm creating this cool thing. And now let me see what y'all have to say about it. And when I teach and I talk about like ethical computing and social impacts of computing and those type of things, I always lend myself to this idea of like the curb cut effect. And so I don't know if everyone knows, I didn't know for a while what a curb cut is because I've experienced it, but I had never heard of it being talked about that way. But sometimes when you get to an intersection, there's like the little dip in the curb so that people who may have mobility needs can like get down and up very easily. Um, and so they're just there, right? A lot of times in our society. But there was a time I'm older, oldish. There was a time when they weren't there, right? They weren't automatically like curb cuts when you're in a city or at a major intersection. So someone decided like we could do this. We could build this into our infrastructure, into our urban planning, and it will help this particular population that better get along. And what happened is they found that it helped a lot of other people too, right? Businesses who needed to like haul things up and other people, runners who just don't want to have to like step down and extra on your joints. Like it started to help society as a whole. And I think that when we're thinking about like humanistic elements, um, when we think about the outliers, when we think about the human experience, sometimes I think we should think about people who are on the margins, who are on the outside. I think if we design and consider them first, it more than often will help everyone. When we think about our speech to text or automatic speech recognition, you think that was designed for Jay, for Dr. Nias? No, you think I use it all the time? Heck yeah, right? It was not designed for me or anyone who looks like me or has my profile. I was not the persona that was the people who designed that initially were for. But do I benefit from it? Do I love it in my car? Is it helping me keep up with my meetings every day? It is. It's doing all those things. And so I think when we start to think about those outliers more centrally, like we pull them into the center of our work, and the people in the domains that go along with that, I think we create better work for everyone in what we're producing.
Thank you, Dr. Nias. That's a great point. I do believe research can benefit the whole, even if it's focused on a specific population. Just like you said, for the curb cuts, mothers pushing strollers and whatnot benefit significantly from that. But I am curious on like the student thoughts on this. So like as AI continues to grow and develop, how do you see your roles as student researchers in this developmental process?
Usually within research, the students are doing the grunt work, and so, but with that, I would say honestly, our role within it is more so. I would say just with the accessibility of, well, with what compute could do now and everything, we have the ability to run more experiments and everything. So I would say going outside the box and being able to also, while also doing like the target goal, but trying other stuff along the way and seeing what works. And so I think, especially now with what's available, it's a lot more stuff you're able to do with the same amount of time. So.
Yeah, I 100% agree with what Howard said. And like personally, as an AI researcher and developer, it's actually like something I've chosen to kind of like take a step back from in the sense of like linguistics and natural language processing because we are at the point where AI can iterate on itself, test itself, write its own research dissertation by itself autonomously. And there's so much work in natural language processing and LLMs being done every single day. For me personally, when I think of how can I contribute to ML frameworks and AI systems that genuinely push research to new bounds it just has not reached yet. For me, I found the place I could do that lying at the intersection of cognitive neuroscience and machine learning, and learning how machine learning can be applied just for brain signal processing, segmentation, and EEG visualizations. And in the future, I really hope to just be a leader in building those new age brain computer interfaces. Recently, there was a study completed at UC Berkeley where they're actually able to design a machine learning algorithm that can transcribe your thoughts from your brain waves into natural language. And this was all done through brain computer interfaces and machine learning. And that's just an example of the kind of future work I want to do at the intersection of cognitive neuroscience and AI.
This is going to be a question for everyone, so figure out who wants to start. Um, what does a truly human-centered AI future look like, and what is the biggest barriers to achieving it today? I know that's a heavy question. Take your time.
I hate to be the one that's always got something to say. First of all, Thane, I was going to call you out if you didn't mention neuroscience. So thank you for that. He's my student. First time on a panel with my student. Kind of cool. Oh, goodness. The prompt was the future of human-centered AI. Yes. So we talk about how we can better employ these systems. And so one of the things I think about is like a couple of things. Is being someone who really sits in socio-technical spaces around computing in general. What happens to like our ephemeral experiences, those experiences that exist just in that time and space? It's not recorded, it's not kept, it's not amplified. Do we as humans still need that? Do we still need just time to just be? We don't have to take it with us after it happens. That joke happened, you laugh, you felt good, you moved on, right? You didn't have to share it with anyone. It didn't need to go on TikTok. All of those type of things. So I think about analog uh, learning, engagement, interaction, things that are outside of digital compute type resources. Dr. Faye Payton was like, yo, where can I go work out in Atlanta? Right. She's like, I just moved there and like I need to and she's a giant in computing, right? And she's like, but I wanna lift things and move my body and be in nature and. And so I think about from a humanistic perspective, like where do we get to turn it off, right? Because I'm concerned that one, it exists right now when we think of AI. For the most part, we think about going to it to do something, or it kind of existing. Like I pick up my phone and I speak to it, or I go into this app and I do a thing. Um, which is true, but there's also other ways that it's kind of there and it's present in our appliances, in our homes. And like, at what point do we get to not participate or shut that off? And I think about like the world of humans from like my children and my children's children, like, will they, not just from like a surveillance perspective, which is also a consideration for certain, will they, but we also I don't think have studied enough about the implications on like brain development of having access. I have a friend who was in med school and she was talking about Americans exposure to light, like lights, right? She's like, and she was Ghanaian. She was like, in the village when the sun goes down, the lights, you might have a little bit of light, but you don't have light, right? She's like, in a lot of our world, when it gets dark, it's dark. Your skin is not exposed to light, your eyes, your brain, like that could change us. And so we turn on the lights and keep things going, right? Let's go keep it moving. I'm gonna watch this movie. I'm gonna do some laundry. I'm gonna do whatever I need. I'm gonna write this paper. I'm gonna work on my code, whatever it is. So I think about like from a human perspective, at what point, because I think industry is moving forward and making these products that I think they think they're making our lives better. They are. I think they're working towards equitable AI. They probably are. It's probably not their priority. No. Well, yeah. Well, okay, yes. All of those. Yes, and right. But I don't know that they're thinking about like not when we choose to not participate, like where do we get that choice, where do we get the agency and how we get to engage, because it's just a cool thing and it has to be there, right? It has to make our lives better. So when I think about the future of like human-centered AI, that is a question that feels, or an opportunity. I was gonna say an unanswered question, but I would tell my students this is an opportunity, right? when you haven't answered something in your research and there's kind of a little hole right there, like that's our opportunities. We'll write about that in our limitations section of our paper. But yeah, so I think about that. I think about the not just the not participate, but can we like actually decide when and with? Like I want to now, but maybe not later, right? I want to contribute my data now, but can I not later at some point? Or does it have to be like an all-in type of situation where we're always into it? I also, the Afrofuturist to me has to say, when I think about human-centered, if I get to ideate that in my brain, I think again, culture is so important to me as an African American woman who is a descendant of enslaved people who were brought here. I have my own Sankofa journey where I seek to learn and reclaim as much of West African cultures as I can and kind of reshape that in the lives of myself and my children. I think about a technology and an AI that would also afford and promote and celebrate that. So it's very similar to what I said earlier, but I just want to reiterate that for me, a human-centered AI future would do that, right? It would allow affordances or even ways to perpetuate and celebrate diversity of culture for different communities. Specifically, I have a student here who's presenting a poster. Kamali, raise your hand a little bit. Shout out to Kamali. Her poster is about tonal language learning, but the motivation, I don't mean to scoop your talk. I'm sorry, I won't say too much. No spoilers. But the idea is there are parts of cultures that are not surviving in this world. They're at risk. And we could say, well, that's another language gone, or it's another story gone, or that's another in some West African traditions, when someone passes away, they say a library has burned to the ground. Or they'll say a great tree has fallen, right? And so when we lose the last native speaker of a thing, truly a library has burned to the ground, right? Because embedded in a lot of languages can be proverbs, stories, fables, tales, games, just recipes, physics, math, multivariate statistics, whatever it is, right? It's all there. And I don't believe that this like Western dominant science exploration that we have has fully actualized the scope of what is possible technologically. I don't think it's all embedded in what we learn through like a Western lens. And I think that some of these other communities and societies have offerings that could potentially be the next brain wave interface algorithm or something. And so yeah, I never know how to close, so I'm just gonna say thank you to whoever's next.
So whomever would like to go next. The question was, how do you see a truly human-centered AI future, and what are the barriers to achieving it today?
I'll give it a go. So yeah, really love the balance between personalizing something and keeping something private. That's something that truly needs to be discussed. Being able to take the decision of when and how is a really powerful human experience and tool, which I feel should remain within humans in a human AI future, human-centered AI future. But one of the most, I would say, recently concerning developments, at least with AI, technically, is this belief about scaling laws. And I'm personally skeptical of it, but the idea that you can throw the more data and more compute you throw at it, it's supposed to keep growing at a steady rate. What happens when we run out of data? Because we're kind of nearing the edges of the internet, and that's pretty much most of our known global, easily accessible data. What happens to creativity in the long run when books are digested and authorship and all these IP, right? So there are a lot of things we do need to figure out still, and I still believe it is a promising technology that will impact lives in the sense protein folding is a big problem that could save potentially God knows how many lives, potentially cure cancer, which is always a big potentially. So just balancing this sense of opportunity and the future for improvement and progress, but also being aware of the limitations of it and kind of making sure those are kind of balanced or solved and resolved in the long run. Being able to understand these AI systems are also important. Explainability, interpretability, always get that tongue twisted. Those are kind of the directions where I hope a human-centered AI looks into. I do think we need a better understanding of biological systems to really get to that level. But that is a deep, deep rabbit hole. I'll spare you all the long, long, drawn out conversation. So biologically inspired or improved improved models that don't rely on, I don't know, 50,000 images to understand something's a cat versus, something's not.
For a like a perfectly centered human AI, I would say the biggest thing is data governance. And so basically your own personal data just being able to easily opt in and opt out, in which when your data is used, even though traditional models are more so you train and then it's very hard to forget whatever data was ingested, but trying to build architectures in which are more susceptible to, or basically allow for users to be like, you know what, I don't want my data today, and it removes it. And so being able to give the users the ability to opt in and opt out is the biggest thing. And then I think the biggest hurdles for that is just the lack of explainability. And so, like large language models, neural networks, a lot of them are currently seen as a black box. And so, being able to truly understand how predictions are made and what data points led to said predictions, and understanding without like, instead of just knowing like, oh, it works because it works, knowing exactly why it works. And so, being able to predict before it even going through like, oh, this will work. And so that's a big problem nowadays. It's a very much lack of understanding.
Okay, so for a truly human-centered AI future, what does that look like to you, and what are the biggest barriers that's facing today?
I think with the supremacy of like cloud computing and centralized like models, it's for me it's very hard to picture what a human-centered AI looks like if AI innovation is being led by centralized monopolies who are not really prioritizing how how these models can help and better our lives all the times. A lot of the like when you think if you're a leading researcher at ChatGPT, you're hired to increase the efficiency, usage times, and just the general like proficiency rates of these models. And I'm thinking as like kind of what Dr. Saurav was saying, as like we're kind of like getting towards the edge of the internet, and like what Howard was saying about actually having complete ownership of the data that you feed into these models. For me, it's really hard to fathom what a human centered AI future looks like if everyone is only using centralized AI models. There are other decentralized AI models that use peer-to-peer decentralized compute power, um, just through peer-to-peer connected like GPUs, CPUs, and TPUs. And I think kind of like also what Howard was saying, um, just about the knowledge gap. A lot of people actually don't understand what what process is going on behind the scenes when you prompt and when you input, when you query an LLM, how that is sending an API request back to a host data center, how that is then being processed by a chat GPT, TPU, or quantum computer chip, and then having to be sent right back to you. If we're continually relying on cloud compute protocols, in my opinion, it's very hard to reach the ethos of human-centered AI without a peer-to-peer compute protocol.
Thank you. So my next question is going to be for all of you as well. And this will probably be the last question. I want to make sure I save time for questions from the audience. So as AI is continuously evolving, what can we do today to ensure the ethical use of AI from its development to how we see others using it. What can we do to be ethical researchers?
Keep asking questions, obviously, is a fundamental part of research. So balance, you will see my answers always end with balance, but balance this sense of capabilities and opportunity with a healthy dose of skepticism in terms of output. I would say, you know, we're humans bound by our own subjective experience, so sometimes empathy goes a bit far. So if the same answer given to you by X, Y, and Z chatbot, would that be perceived the same way? The same sentence, I could read the same sentence 3 different ways and mean, you know, understand it 3 different ways. So probably kind of also thinking beyond text and beyond probabilistic modeling of text and all the things that are kind of ongoing within current chat-based systems is kind of the way to go. So understanding limitations, accepting opportunity with healthy skepticism, and keep questioning.
Did you
You go first.
You got another question? You said you got another question, maybe. He kind of handled that. It was good. So if you had one more, we could jump in one last. Who's squeaking another question? That was really good. Oh, that's fine. Yeah.
So any questions from the audience for our panelists?
I think my question is primarily focused to you, Dr. Nias. I thought about what you said about dictation and how when it comes to it, primarily people who look like me, sometimes language doesn't capture what we're saying or how we're trying to say it, or even our names. So I guess one of my questions is, should we be running to inclusion? And I bring that up only because thinking about the history we have specifically in this country and even on a global scale, sometimes when we include who we are as people, uh, it gets regurgitated and watered down, and we lose bits of our cultural identity. I've seen certainly opportunities in labs like the Mass Game Lab when it comes to Africa, of how there has been certainly a push to make sure that languages are onboarded um, so that they're not lost. But I sometimes wonder, are we just delaying the inevitable by doing so? And I'm just curious how you think about that. I promise you I'm not an Afro pessimist, but it is something that weighs on my mind.
I love that question. I'm with you. Like I'm aligned with you. I think this idea of democratizing AI, data usage, data ingesting, all of that really gives agency to the communities that are being appropriated in these contexts. And so I have these same concerns and questions. Thane was presenting on one of our research projects yesterday, and we kind of surveyed LLMs for understanding slang terms in an intersectional way. So we kind of broke it down by communities like churchy and queer and family and but collegiate was the one. And we found that a lot of the collegiate context with regard to the D9 families were misrepresented or misunderstood. I think they didn't have the nuance. And I was thinking as you were presenting thing, I was like, maybe they like it that way though, right? You know, these secret societies, maybe they're like, yeah, we don't want people to know what we talk about when we say poodle or whatever, right? So I think about a talk I went to many, many years ago where a group of Native American folks, researchers went to their tribal leaders to ask about the use, because their language is also endangered, to create a chatbot, and the leaders were like, nope. They were like, but they were like, nope, right? And so, back to your earlier question about ethics, it's not going to be like a one way of handling all these things, but really like, and maybe I need to maybe study like more humanistic scholarship, but maybe that is the humanistic way. Like we have to really consider on a case by case basis. But it is something even within our lab, like how much do we want to share, right? How much do we want to make available to everyone? We think about like Black Wall Street and before desegregation, like how vibrant our communities were. And I was on another panel a couple weeks back, and I was talking to the panelists about this in our prep, and I was like, maybe this is like a reverse desegregation. I was like, we needed a word for that, right, in our current climate, but like maybe it's forcing us to go within our communities and start to create for ourselves, right, and to really be intentional about building with us in mind for us, right, and kind of keeping in enclosed systems. And AI I need my experts to really affirm this, but I'm wondering if I think in our work that we're doing for the military, with the militarized weird conversation, right? For some of the military domains and applications, I was talking to one of our other students, Chris, about this, like how these things could apply to other communities where they have to keep very closed, sacred, protected information and communication. Maybe it is about building less for industry and for general use, and more building like within these closed spaces. Can somebody speak to that? Like we can't build just for us, right? We don't have to. I got a yes.
Maybe if there are more thoughts about that question, we certainly would take them, but maybe we get another question or two on the list. Yeah.
Actually, my question sort of builds off of that. So great segue. So thank you so much for this conversation. It was really fascinating to hear all of these perspectives. And I teach engineering ethics. So I'm not an engineer. I'm one of the social scientists that they led into the engineering school. So I was wondering if, based on your experiences, if you had any actionable advice for those of us who have the opportunity to teach classes where we debunk and decode and actively make sure that the students understand that bias is not just a concept and that it's embedded. So what advice would you give educators and students in that space?
I know I'm just a moderator, but I'm gonna toss in my 2 cents. I think the importance in being a researcher is asking questions, and we need our students, our researchers, everyone involved in AI development to ask questions because we don't know what we don't know. And so I can't bring in experiences or have ideas about Thane's experiences. And so only he would know, but I'll only know your experiences if I ask. And so we need individuals in different spaces that are curious, that have empathy and actually want to get answers to these questions so we can have AI models that are responsible, that are ethical, because we genuinely just don't know what we don't know.
So again, I'm oldish. Grew up in the 80s, 90s. I didn't grow up in a generation that did a lot of protest, right? But I think our parents did through civil rights movement, and these young people are growing up in communities where they are protesting, and some of that comes through like critically unpacking, first of all, the lens at which they're starting to see inequity, right, show up and harm, but also like I think they're more tuned to critically unpack things. I could be wrong, I'm old, but this idea that they start to attune that gift to how they look at their work, their scholarly work, their educational work, like how can I unpack where this might exacerbate some harm or create harm, all the way from like the data I'm using. My undergrad is chemical engineering. So we'd start with like given, right? And we put all the terms and things that we know. And then we like, what are we trying to find? And then what formulas are available and how do we get from here to there, right? And so within each of those steps, let's start to like really critically unpack from various lenses, not just racial, class, ability, all of those things, right? How can we unpack who's left out, who's included, who's over included, what's missing, all the way through to creating systems, right? At what places is there vulnerabilities that could potentially harm someone? And so allowing them to kind of flex that lens within these academic spaces, these scientific spaces, is something I think I'm excited about. So I hope that moving forward, it'll just be, I think about like the panelists on this side, well, actually, both sides, they're all young. But I think about how they get to center, like how you're working on microaggression. No, you're not working on microaggression. You're working on language. You worked on microaggression, right? How these young people are working on projects that really center themselves. That never would have happened in my college day. Like, I'm working on chemical plant stuff or like food science or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, within the sciences, I don't think they realize how cool that is and how it's already transforming. So I'm really excited about the youth and like what they can bring to the scholarship of computing, of AI, that they don't even know is like fresh and cool. But I think as us as faculty, as mentors, holding space for that, right? For them to bring themselves into this work.
Okay, maybe time for one or two questions if we move quickly.
How you doing? My name is Tariq Cummings. I'm a student here at Morgan State University. I'm a computer science major, and I'm presenting a poster here today. I had a previous, my apologies. I'm more of a like security based person where I'm like aspiring to be a cybersecurity professional. And I had like a I had a experience where I really went over through a AI system where we looked over what was good AI practices, right? And I remember somebody talking about the topic of data governance. And so my question for all of you guys is like, what are you guys doing from development to all the way to research to ensure that like everything that you're doing is within compliance and making sure that everything is reducing the amount of security risks that we're posing up within technology today? Mainly because like AI now is a bigger risk to security now more than anything nowadays because AI can be used to create deep fakes, to create a lot of like impersonation and stuff like that, or even just to be able to hack the system itself. So, what is your take on that?
I'll briefly talk about it. Any tool is dangerous depending on how you use it. So we can kind of apply that logic here. Not everyone is a nice person, and that's my philosophy. So we have to band together as society and kind of, I believe in regulation, at least in terms of AI. So kind of setting those requirements beforehand, making sure tools are accessible for research, but industry, and private entities which are profit driven may need a bit more oversight. That's again my perspective. And kind of establishing some sort of fixed set of rules that AI probably needs to go through. On the flip side, AI is also a good tool for cybersecurity. So kind of balancing that through a lot of adversarial approaches and whatnot is something I routinely do. So testing our systems against an adversarial chatbot, right? Really good way to go. Adversarial browser agent, pen tester website, and things of that nature. So at least for me, it's a lot on the application and regulation side.
For security purposes of like making sure data is protected, The big thing is when models are publicly released, and so when stuff is kept internal, like you could be a little looser with its protections, but a good rule of thumb, especially with like large language models, is like if you have any private data or anything that you train it on, is it could be told exactly verbatim out if if it's prompt injected right or anything. And so it's ensuring that data that at least is public and not private data is what is being trained for these models, because there's no matter how much you fine tune it afterwards and how much you try to avoid it, there's really no straightforward way to make it so that I don't want it to reveal somebody's social security number or something like that. So ensuring in the pre-processing steps that there's not any sensitive data or anything that's being given to these models in the first place.
Sorry, I just wanted to add an example, like to your point about how AI, like certain AI systems are kind of getting easier to hack. There was this one hackathon where an AI agent was basically autonomously in control of a crypto wallet. I'm not sure if you're aware of like what blockchain is or cryptocurrencies are, but this AI agent was trained to at any prompt, at any cause, to not like to not send out any of the funds. And the wallet, I believe, had like 50,000 of some cryptocurrency. I believe it was Ethereum. But again, it was trained so that despite what any user prompted, it was to not send out any of the funds. But I think it wasn't in under 72 hours, somebody had actually hacked the LLM agent to release all of its assets and all of its funds to that person's wallet. And he was the winner of that hackathon. And I just wanted to say, like, to your point, there's a lot of convergence in research between like cybersecurity and AI applications. Specifically in blockchain, they have a lot of like autonomous AI agents who will propose transactions when you should swap a currency or when you should propose like selling some of your Bitcoin or selling some of your Ethereum. It's a great way there. You can kind of make some passive income and just kind of like grow your investments. But yeah, I just like your question resonated with me. As a freshman, I also came in with like peak interest in cybersecurity, specifically blockchain. But when I joined HCAI, I was like exposed to so much more AI research. But I just wanted to share that there are so many really, really, really cool like research projects that happen at the intersection of like blockchain as a service and AI.
Okay, looks like we have one last question and we'll go to the poster session.
Thank you so much. I wanted to ask question regarding the blockchain. So I know blockchain is a decentralized system and it's more secured. And so the integration of AI into blockchain, I want to understand how the security aspect, I mean, how we can integrate the security of the blockchain into AI. For example, look at the AI agent you talked about. What if it was built on blockchain? So would there be any form of, I mean, how do you, okay, I want you to explain the process. What if the AI agent was built in the blockchain system or platform? What do you think? Would there be any such theft or insecurity or that happened like that?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And also feel free to come up to me after if you want to talk more about this. There are really so many use cases of AI agents being used in blockchain. For example, I don't know if you're familiar with DAOs. They're called decentralized autonomous organizations. They're basically a form of governance that communities in the blockchain and like Web3 industry they use to like vote on and collectively decide how to disperse like funds, either in the realm of like DeSci. There's a lot of like DeSci DAOs, like there's one called Microbiome DAO, there's one called Spine DAO, there's one called Hair DAO. And they actually deploy these AI agents to literally organize and facilitate all these different like seed round fundings and all these other transactions and other procedures that otherwise would be performed and executed by a human through their own like crypto wallet. But now we are able to design our own AI agents who can completely facilitate and operate and organize hundreds of wallets on their own. And this is how like a lot of DAOs and a lot of like new tokens when they launch, how they're able to see like high yields on their trading value and their market cap, because you don't need 50 people to trade the tokens anymore. You don't need a group of 100 people to like buy them and hold stake in them. You now could have a single AI agent open 100 plus wallets, trade them amongst themselves, and grow the value of that coin or the value of that blockchain asset all independently. But if you have more questions, feel free to like come up to me after.
All right, thank you.